Rick Calzada, of course, one of the partners of My Law Solution over in Winter Park. They do all sorts of law stuff. I mean, you want to talk about, they do foreclosures, they do criminal matters like DUIs, they do bankruptcies. Do you do any trusts?
We do trusts.
States and a trust?
Yeah. In fact, that's been a recent trend.
Really?
Yeah.
See? Hey, I'm up on all the legal trends, Rick. You can give them a call at 407-843-2222 or online at mylawsolution.com. Rick, of course, is a Florida State grad. Rick, what is your expert legal opinion on the Florida State outcome this week?
Wow. Florida's got a great defense.
Mm-hmm.
Florida State's got a great kicker. Florida State 3, Florida 2.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, Florida doesn't have a great kicker, and Florida doesn't have an offense.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be one ugly game.
You may be right. Yeah, it could be like a 10-7 or
like that Bucks Cowboys game recently.
Yeah. All right, speaking of Florida State, former Florida State quarterback Jameis Winston obviously had a great game last week. 5 touchdown passes on Sunday. Well, on the same day he had his best NFL game, that night CNN broadcast the documentary called The Hunting Ground. It's a fairly renowned documentary about the rape problem, the rape issue on college campuses. It detailed the sexual assault allegations made against Winston during his tenure at Florida State. And in the film, Erica Kinsman, his accuser, tells her story on camera. And Jameis Winston wasn't happy about it. His attorneys weren't happy about it. Florida State wasn't happy about it, that CNN was broadcasting this, because the makers of the documentary, Rick, they fully admit it's told from the accuser's side. It's a slanted, sort of one-sided documentary. And Jameis Winston's attorney, let me read you what he wrote, all right? CNN may have persuaded itself that Mr. Winston's status as a public figure insulates CNN from a libel judgment. We may want to test that in a court of law. Do they have a case?
I don't think so.
No?
No, and it's because of that terminology, public figure.
Mm-hmm.
That creates a very difficult standard for Winston's camp to bring a lawsuit and win a lawsuit for defamation. They would have to show that CNN acted with actual malice, and that's a very difficult standard to overcome. It's not malice in this case is not that CNN does not like Winston.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the issue. The issue is where they acted in reckless disregard for the truth, or that they knew that the statements being aired were false when they aired them. And I don't think you can bring a lawsuit and win a lawsuit proving that CNN knew the statements were false. And that's the issue.
What about the, some of the no charges were ever brought against Jameis Winston? The school, Florida State, during their internal investigation, they didn't find any wrongdoing. Any of that doesn't prove malice?
I don't think so. No. And but it's a different standard on whether or not the accuser would win in her civil lawsuit against Winston. It's a completely different standard. And everything you're mentioning there, the inconsistent stories, investigation by the police, investigation by the university, investigation by the state attorney's office, all independent of each other, all concluding with different standards that there was nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for me to sit here and accept that movie can air the way it did without any journalistic standards of impartiality, but they didn't intend to do it that way. But Winston is a public figure, and he has to accept that this is going to not stop until this civil case is over. What do you think's
going to be the end game of all of the legal wrangling?
I think they're going to go to trial. I do, and I think Winston's going to come out on top on this one.
You do?
Just because, remember the Dalvin Cook case? I told you from the beginning.
Yeah.
Defense attorney's dream with all these inconsistent statements. Well, this case has much more from, her claiming she was drugged, but toxicology coming back from the night of the incident, nothing there. her telling the police she was hit over the head. Well, her medical exam didn't, she didn't say that then. She didn't, then the examiners didn't find any evidence of that. The text messages, it just goes on and on and on. And I just don't see how a jury reasonably could look at the facts and conclude that her story is true.
Interesting. Another case that's sort of interesting and that has some Florida ties. 2 Florida-based daily fantasy league customers. We're talking about Fan Duel and DraftKings, right? 2 of their customers have filed a class action lawsuit against a bunch of different companies, including the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NHL, Major League Soccer. And these 2 guys say that because these leagues, like the NBA, have tied themselves to DraftKings and FanDuel and have major sponsorship deals with these daily fantasy sites, that they have, quote, been lured into illegal gambling because of what these companies have tied themselves to. Do they have a case?
This case shows you why people hate attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in every sense of the word, the fact that you're claiming in a 197-page complaint in a federal court.
We were lured into it, Rick. They made us do it.
By the advertising.
Yes.
When
false advertising, Rick.
When I played the game, I thought it was legal and it wasn't gambling, but then I played it and I lost, and now I believe it's gambling. It's a joke, but you can bring these sorts of things.
Okay, all right. Playing devil's advocate.
Sure.
I agree with you. Playing devil's advocate. What's the difference between this and, say, back in the day when everybody was suing the tobacco companies because they didn't present all the facts about, how bad tobacco was for your health?
Well, they were doing some very egregious things in there and actually playing with the nicotine levels and putting in compounds to actually try to addict you to it. So that's a different animal altogether. But I could make the same argument. I go to Starbucks almost every single day.
Mm-hmm.